Hello, everyone, and welcome down to another very special episode of the Down South Photo Show with me, Brendan Waits, here in Ocean Grove, Victoria, Australia, and someone else on the other screen over there. We have another special guest on the show, and it's a first for us. Finally, we have enticed a female photographer to come on the show and talk about their photographic journey. It's a big hello to Cheryl Davis. Hello, Cheryl.
Hello. Hi, Brendan. Hi, everyone.
Now, you're all the way in Western Australia. I love it.
Yes, I am, all the way over about an hour south of Perth.
Lovely. So not only are you our first female guest, you're also our first person, I think our first guest from WA as well, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Wow. Okay. No, thank you for having me. I'm very honoured to be the first female guest and the first from WA.
Well, we don't just pick anyone. We didn't just pick you because you're female. We picked you because you're actually quite good at what you do.
Thank you very much.
Cheryl is, she will hate me saying this, but I think she's fast become an expert in macro photography in particular. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a cuppa and enjoy a little ride with us as we delve into the mind of Cheryl Davis and how she went about becoming a macro photographer, essentially. Cheryl, would you classify yourself purely as a macro photographer?
I think that's my sort of number one. Like, I will do a little bit of landscape and things, but macro is the obsession, I think.
Well, those of you who have seen interviews that we do, that we've done before, or that I've done before, we like to start our interviews with a little segment I call burst mode. And this is just to get inside the head of the person that I'm interviewing. So we have a few questions relating to photography. There is no wrong answer. I'll just put it out there that you can answer this however you see fit. Whatever comes to mind. So I feel like you're laying down on the chair here. So, all right. So you can just, on the couch, just relax. And so Cheryl, color or black and white?
Color. I do like black and white, but I think for what I photograph most of the time with the bugs, the insects and spiders, you need that color.
Very good answer. I like it. What was your first camera?
It was a Minolta FSC point and shoot, which I got for my 16th birthday and still have. It's on the shelf back down there somewhere.
Fantastic. So this is not one of the bursts, but what year was that? Not we want to give away your age or anything, but what year was that?
1986.
Fantastic. So I love when we have people on whose first camera was actually a film camera, because closer to my vintage.
That was point and shoot for my 16th, and then I inherited my dad's Canon EOS 1000 film camera when he upgraded. So and I still got that. That's also on that shelf.
What is it with us and putting cameras on shelves behind us? I don't know. So what is your current camera?
Current camera is the OM1, and I've also got the Olympus EM1 Mark II. So I swapped from Nikon. I was a Nikon shooter. I got the D750, and I swapped over to the EM1 Mark II. I bought that secondhand when I decided that I would, test the waters with changing to a lighter system. I have a bit of a neck and shoulder issue from a car crash I had when I was about 17. And I was just finding that Nikon system too heavy. So then I was looking at trying a lighter system. So I picked up an EM1 Mark II, which I still have as well. And then when I got into the macro, it was a no-brainer really to stick with it. It
is kind of a no-brainer. We're going to drill down into that as we go on. Name me one of your inspirations.
Just one. I'm going to say, there's been lots from my parents back in the day too, but I'm going to say a gentleman called Paul Irvine, who is, he lives locally. He's PWI photography on Instagram. And he's a local macro guru who has been super helpful in providing his knowledge and experience and enthusiasm, I think, right from the start. And so he's been a really big inspiration for me.
Excellent. So I think I know the answer to this, but what's your favorite lens?
The 60mm macro, 2.9.
I knew it. That's a fantastic.
I've got the 90. I have got the 90, but I just enjoy that 60mm. It's a much smaller system to use. The diffuser's smaller, the flash is smaller. So it's just light, and I just enjoy. The 90 mils a phenomenal lens, but I just enjoy photographing with the 60 mil much more.
Okay. So this, I think I know the answer to this one as well. Film or digital? What would you prefer to shoot, film or digital?
Digital. Yeah. Because with any wildlife, they're always going to move, fly away, run away, or turn away, away from you as you're going to hit that shutter. So digital, again, it's a bit of a no-brainer. You don't get, it doesn't matter about all those shots that aren't going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cheryl, what's more important, exposure or composition?
Well, I feel like I definitely have to say exposure. But no, I think
have to. He's got you in a bind, hasn't he?
He has. But I think it's a hard one, isn't it? Because
no, it's very easy. It's composition every day of the week.
Well, the composition is important. Like you want to be able, 9 times out of 10, you want to see the eye of your book, your subject.
Yeah.
So the composition's quite important. But again, even though with the macro we're controlling the exposure through the flash, it's still really important, because otherwise you're just going to blow out all the details. So it's no good having a great composure if you've blown out all the detail. Yeah,
they're both very important, but one's definitely more important. Who's your favorite Down South Photo Show host, me or
Hang on, I don't
answer that. Don't answer that. What? And last in our burst mode, what would be your dream photography location?
Okay, so if I can only choose one again,
no wrong answers.
There's a couple of locations from a macro point of view, but the one that I've always wanted to go to, and I'm actually going to be lucky enough to go to later this year, is the Grand Canyon. And that's more a personal thing, that my granddad always wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. Grandma always wanted to do a cruise. So we got grandma on a cruise, but we never got granddad to the Grand Canyon. So I've always wanted to go for him. And then after getting into photography, I think that has now become I want to go for granddad, but I want to capture a really great photo while I'm there also. So, obviously it's my number one.
Can I just say, as far as burst mode answers go, that's probably the best burst mode answer we've ever had. So well done. And it doesn't disappoint, the Grand Canyon either. It's a sight to behold, for sure. So yes, I was lucky to go with Mr. Blake. Well, he took me there last year. So as he's doing with you this year. So it's a fabulous location. I'm glad you're looking forward to that. Look, clearly macro photography is your thing, as everyone's seen the thumbnail that I've put up, and we're here to talk to Cheryl mainly about macro photography, but as I like to do with all these interviews, I like to get to the teeth of where did it start for Cheryl Davis? What attracted you to photography in the very first place? Why did you want that awesome little Minolta film camera?
I think I mentioned earlier, with inspirations going back to parents, which I know quite a few of your guests have said before, but I think that's where a lot of things start for us. And my parents have always loved the outdoors, and they've always loved wildlife. So I've spent a lot of my childhood outside in some beautiful places. I spent a fair few holidays doing wildlife spotting, and we still do. Dad's a big birder. He got into photography so he could photograph his birds. And so I think that's where those interests started for me. And I guess at 16, just dad's been a bit cool with his camera, and I wanted the camera to capture those memories, really, to start with. And then I think you get more interested and a bit more invested, and you want to be able to take better photographs of those memories. So it was it's a slow burn over a lot of years of having cameras, not doing photography for a couple of years, picking it back up again, and things like that. But I think it's my parents' fault, basically.
Their fault. That's right. Now the canny amongst us do detect a slight accent. So
yes.
Where were your photography beginnings?
So I'm from a little town called Worksop in Nottinghamshire in the UK, which is in the Midlands. So Sherwood Forest Country, that's where
Fantastic.
I'm from. At the top of the county where I'm from, the borders, there's 3 counties joined together. There's Derbyshire, Yorkshire and Nottinghamshire. So where we were placed, we were just in a perfect spot to have very beautiful places nearby. Sherwood Forest was just down the road. We got a couple of National Trust places. And then over the border into Derbyshire and Yorkshire. Yorkshire's probably one of my favourite places in the world. It's absolutely stunning. And we spent a lot of our time in both, either at weekends or, we didn't have a lot of money as young children, but mum and dad would save up and they would take us, and we wouldn't go far. We'd go into Yorkshire. And they were just beautiful. And then a little bit later on, we'd go down to Devon and Cornwall, but it stemmed from there, really.
Yeah. So when you were given that first camera, and I believe you said it was for your 16th birthday, is that right?
Yes, it was. Yeah. A long time ago.
Can you remember the feeling when you were given that camera?
I was super excited. I took so many photographs. I think film was a lot cheaper then, and I was working, by the time I was 17, I was working in a little local supermarket, and it was just memories. It was just as we were going out for the day or going out on holiday and things like that. But I just enjoyed the process of taking photos. Mum and Dad have an album from when they let us as kids take our first photos, and so in the album is my brother's first photo and my first ever photo.
So you still technically got the first photo you ever took?
Yes. Yeah. Well, mum and dad do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. Well, next time you're over there, you got to get a high res scan of that and
yes. I've
put
not
it
thought
somewhere.
about it. Yeah.
That's super cool. So obviously, a little Minolta compact point and shoot, although it's great for capturing memories, doesn't really get you so far as the technical side of photography has. So what led you to think or feel like you might want to get a little bit more out of a camera?
I think it was just something that I took like a slow burn. It was just something I was interested in. And it wasn't until quite a lot later, I moved to Shropshire for a job, and I'd started picking up the camera again, just to, like I say, I inherited Dad's camera, and just pottering about with that. But I had a friend that I worked with called Sheena, and she was also interested a little bit in photography. So we joined Wolverhampton Photographic Society, who were amazing, and that was a real, they really nurtured us both, I think. A very, very friendly club. We learnt a lot. We went out a lot, but we both ended up doing, so there's a qualification called the Citizen Guilds over in the UK, and we did a couple of sort of entry-level ones. All on film, so a little bit of darkroom work and things like that. This is on an EOS 1000, is that right? EOS 1000, but then I did actually change to a Nikon F80, I think it is, which is also on the shelf.
Now there's a camera. So once I went off my Pentax K1000 and started getting serious myself, the Nikon F80 was my first purchase as well. Yeah. Expensive little bugger back in the day too.
Yes, and that was another chap that I worked. So I worked with Sheena at the library, and our caretaker, Dave, he did some photography, and he was encouraging us, but he kept saying you need to swap to Nikon. And Dad's camera was, showing the way he'd been using it. So I was sensible. I went down to the camera shop and I tried both the Canon and the Nikon just felt better in the hand. So I ended up buying
that must have been a Jessop's, right?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. There was one on every high street in the UK. So yeah.
Yes. Once upon a time, yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, it wasn't a camera club you were in, was it? It was.
Yes. Yeah. Wolverhampton Photographic Society.
Right, yes. Okay. And that included, I would assume, competitions and things like that. So that
included competitions, included lots of, your day outings, and they did lots of they did sessions on teaching photography as well. So there was a lot of learning involved, which was good. The competitions I didn't get too much into. They would run they had a very serious one which led to Photographer of the Year. But they also did a couple of fun ones as well. So they'd have a five-a-side competition. They'd have the best photograph taken on an outing, and I'd enter those because they were for fun. I think, the way that competitions could affect people, and people stop enjoying their photography because it was all about what is the judge going to want to see.
This is a very good point. Listen up, people. Listen, she speaks the truth. Testify, Cheryl.
But yeah, so instead of, when you go out looking for the photograph that you like, it was all about what is the judge going to like, and you can go along to the club nights and then be totally disappointed because your photograph didn't do as well as somebody else's photograph that might have been, you know, a similar thing, or you've put your heart and soul in because you think that's what the judge is going to want and they didn't, and then just lose the passion and the enjoyment for it. So I actually didn't end up doing a lot of competitions. I didn't want to go down that route as well.
Yeah, it is definitely something we hear about a lot and talk about from time to time on the Down South Photo Show, is that very thing, is that shooting for someone else rather than for yourself. I find all the good photographers I talk to, they barely even pick up on trends or anything that are going on. It's really just what intrigues them and what they want to actually take photos of, which leads me to the question. So the macro thing. So was that born out of these camera clubs and out of these outings and things like that, or was it just something that piqued your interest from the get-go?
So it's been a relatively recent thing. So it really only started in 2021.
Wow.
I've always sort of said that landscape's been my first love, but I never really found. I don't feel comfortable going into really remote places on my own as a woman quite often, and so you're tending to wait for the next workshop to come around or something to be able to get to those places. And I have a few, you know, photography friends locally, but they're not always available when you are, or they're not necessarily interested in landscape photography. They're more interested in wildlife or portraiture. So I found I wasn't getting out to do the landscape. So I was just, I don't know, a bit of a loss, just happily snapping away at whatever. And then, so it's a bit of a long story, but I had a friend.
We're all settled in, Cheryl. We're along for the ride. You had to say hello.
So I've always been interested in wildlife. So I've always, you know, photographed the birds that I've come across, or whales, or, you know, whatever we've done as we've been out on whatever. So that interest has always been there. But I had a friend back in the UK called Tom, who I'd met while I worked for the National Trust, and him and his wife were volunteers. His wife's Jenny. And he studied spiders and Jenny studied grasshoppers. And Tom had taken early retirement. He'd got into spiders. He became the county recorder for the National Spider Recording Scheme. He got very, very good. He also he was very, very funny, very Scottish, liked a whiskey, liked his jazz, and told a very funny tale. So he would talk to us about these spiders, and he'd just make them hilarious, and particularly the sex life. He seemed particularly interested in the sex life of spiders. But so he would tell these tales, and they were very funny. And so he just sparked that interest. And myself and other friends have been out with him a lot, helping him with his, you know, his studies and things. So then I moved here, and unfortunately Tom got sick. So I had a phone call to tell me that Tom wasn't going to be with us for very much longer. And then it was either the next day or the day after that, I can't remember. But my friend Annette rang me and said, we've got the chance to go out and look for peacock spiders. Do you want to come? And it was almost like the universe was telling me something. You know, it was so close together, and I was like, yes, please. So off I went, and really, you know, doing it for Tom as more than myself. But I went out, and Paul, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, he was sort of leading the session. And we were looking for these tiny, tiny things. They're millimeters long in grass. Like it was a nightmare. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. I'd got a Nikon D750, so it's heavy. Yeah. I'd got a really old Sigma 105 lens that I'd had for years and never used, that wouldn't talk to the camera properly. So I'd be able to fire off a couple of shots, then it didn't want to do anything, and it'd take me a few minutes to get it I'd got a Nikon flash and I'd got a Magmod diffuser on because that's all I'd got. And I'm sat on the floor. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm getting bitten by ants and mozzies, trying to find and photograph these tiny things. But I got one shot that I liked, which we'll see later on. But I got one shot.
We're going to see it right now.
We can see it right now. So this is the female peacock spider, the female, so Muratus gemmifer. So I didn't get a decent shot of the males at all, but I got this one shot of this little female and I liked it. And I was hooked.
Yeah. I mean, what an amazing story. I mean, that's, I said before that you were quite good at the burst mode question. You're nailing this. That gave me goosebumps, that story. What a fantastic way to get you into a certain genre of photography. Serendipity, I think they call it.
Yeah, I think so. And I was just so lucky to be, it was really weird that call came at the time it did.
Yeah.
And then I was just so lucky that so Annette and I went out, Paul was there and a couple of other people, and they couldn't have been more, friendly and helpful. And I think the whole thing just worked and clicked. And you came away without, let's be honest, not a lot of experience in the macro field with that image that we can see on the screen there. Yes, you should see all the rest though. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter at all. I mean, I personally, I would discard 1,000 photos for that. I mean, look at it. That's an absolute cracker. Thank you. But it was just that one photo, and I was like, wow, okay, I want to do this. This is. So, are you one of these incredible people that can reel off Latin names for animals? Oh no, no, not really. No, some I can. So I know this one's Muratus gemmifer. I've got another one to show you later, but I'm not great at remembering. No, not at all. Well, I like to know what they are, and I try to include them on my if I put an Instagram post up or something, I try and include them. But it's really hard to actually name a lot of insects and spiders and things. Half of them haven't even been named yet. Some of them you can only tell. Some spiders you can only tell the difference and exactly what species it is by looking at the genitalia under a microscope. So, really, that was another thing Tom used to like to describe to us in great detail. Right. So, it is really hard. And, I'm still learning definitely with that. Well, don't despair, folks. We've got a stack more photos to show you as we go through. But do you have, like, I'm assuming this has sort of come on, but would you initially have liked spiders at all, or have you fallen in love with spiders since your macro journey began? I've fallen more in love, yeah. I think I was always interested in wildlife, so whatever form it was. Yeah. And obviously knowing Tom, I'd got an appreciation for them. I'm less bothered about spiders than things like centipedes and stuff. They're the things that make me a little bit edgy, but so I had an appreciation for spiders, but I've grown to love them very much. And it doesn't matter how big or how small. So friends and family back in the UK, when you tell them that you now are in Australia and you're shooting spiders, do they freak out a little bit? Yeah, like mum and dad don't. I think it's great. I'm not sure about my brother. He's not keen on things that crawl. And a few of my friends, so when I first started sharing things on my Facebook page, I had a few friends going, no, stop. Please don't put those things on there, So I stopped and I put a cockroach on and I got the same messages. Well, there you go. I want to break down this genre, basically, of macro photography. So when we talk macro photography, I'm assuming you would classify macro photography as something that you need a specific lens for, or therefore a focal length, and you need a macro lens. So it's basically the miniature world, right? And that's what macro is all about. Yeah. So macro. Sorry, go on. You go. No, you go ahead. Explain to me. Talk to me like I don't know what I'm talking about, and tell me what macro photography is, Cheryl. So technically, macro is something where the subject is going to render on the sensor at life size, so 1:1 or more, so 2:1 magnification or something like that. So technically, if it's less than a 1-to-1 rendition on your sensor, it's close-up photography. But we use macro just to cover the whole thing, really. So for dedicated macro, yes, a dedicated macro lens is going to allow you to get close to your subject and actually get that 1-to-1 magnification or above. But a lot of lenses will allow you to get close up as well. So so technically macro is 1-to-1, but close up. And there's quite a few macro photographers and quite a lot of our images that will be close. Technically, they're close up. I don't think it really matters, you know. And there's a few macro photographers that have their dedicated lenses, but will also use, quite a few of the Olympus lenses focus very close up. So using wide angles to photograph frogs and lizards and things like that as well. It's horses for courses, I think, but technically dedicated macro.
That's probably the best and simplest definition I've ever been given of macro, and that is that it renders the image life size or bigger on the sensor. So the image of the subject. So in your case, the insect. It renders that life size on the sensor, then that's technically macro photography. So that's a very, very simple way of putting it. So when we're talking about gear, I'll just cut to what you're shooting with now, and that is OM system OM1. Is that right?
OM1, yes.
Yep.
So I've got the OM1 and the EM1 Mark II. I still have and will still use occasionally.
And you were saying that the 60mm macro is your weapon of choice. Is there, and why? What's the particular reason for the 60 being your weapon of choice?
I guess it's what I got used to before the 90 came out. I got used to using that 60 and I enjoyed it. When the 90 came out, I did buy that. It is a phenomenal lens. You can get 2-to-1 magnification. Tricky, but you can. It allows you to be a little bit further away from your subject as well, which can be useful if your subject's super skittish. But it's bigger. And so the flash is a bit bigger. The diffuser's a bit bigger. So it's just a little bit more tricky to handle. And a lot of people love it. I just like the small 60mm macro setup. It's lighter, your flash is smaller, your diffuser smaller. So just for me, from a pure enjoyment of my photography point of view, the 60 is the one that's normally on the front of the camera. And it's a phenomenal lens itself. It's very sharp, as you know. So,
I do happen to have that lens in my arsenal as well. And I would dearly love to get into a lot more macro stuff. And I think I spoke. So Cheryl and I actually met each other in Tasmania, and we did the overland track together.
Yes, we did.
A couple of years ago now, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I remember picking your brain then about it, and you pointed me in the direction of diffusers and things, which we'll talk about in a second. It's one of those areas of photography for me, which I definitely will get into. It's just at the moment, it's just the hours of the day, right? Like trying to find time to actually do it. And I have actually attempted to do it as well. And I got to tell you, folks, it ain't easy. People who can capture, and I'm going to put another photo up on the screen here. People who can do that, I mean, come on, Cheryl. That photo is outrageous. That is such an amazing photo. And to me, when I look at that image, that just says it all. That you can see the attraction to the genre right there. I mean, did you do a backflip when you got that photo?
Yes. Well, if my body would allow me to do a backflip, I would have done one. I was fine. I was really happy with that one. Yeah.
Okay, so with that photo on the screen there, can you walk us through how do you begin to even think about getting a shot like this? So how did you find that subject for a start? Let's start there. Right. How do you find a subject like that?
So time of year and knowledge of your subject comes into it to a point. This is another female peacock spider. And I should probably just say, I think this is my last spider as well. So if anybody's not into spiders, there won't be any more after this one. I deliberately didn't put any big spiders in. I only put little ones in. So this is a female Muratus speciosus. The male is stunning. And with peacock spiders, everybody tends to go out looking for the males. You want that colour, you want them dancing, because if anybody who doesn't know peacock spiders, the males lift their abdomens like a peacock does, and they fan and they dance, and it's pretty amazing. And they look stunning. So a lot of the time you're out looking for the males, and the shot you're wanting is that dance shot. I tend to feel like the females are a bit underrated. And if you look at this, look how cute she is, you know. So, but it's knowing what time of year your subject's going to be out, and what time of day as well. You know, you need it a little bit warm. For a lot of invertebrates, they need it a little bit warmer. So you need it, you know, not first thing in the morning if you want to see some things moving, because they need a bit of heat to get warmed up and get going. And then what kind of plant are we looking for? What kind of environment are we looking for? So I know that this one, its common name is the coastal peacock spider. So this one you're going to find on the beach, basically, or on the shrubbery next to the beach.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm not going to assume for a second that this spider is easy to find, but that a bit more common than some of the others, yeah?
Yeah, or they're actually relatively easy to find here in WA. Most beaches with this particular plant, which I think is big face. I should know that, but I've forgotten. They're in there. They're just tiny. So it really does mean a lot. So the approach basically is you approach the plant and you kneel next to it, sit down next to it, stand over it, and you just stare and stare and stare. And you're looking, and it's the same with most macro photography of insects. You're just staring at leaves and branches and nooks and crannies just to find what you're looking for. And you're looking for a little bit of movement, a little bit of color, a little bit of something that looks a bit out of place. And you just, it's a lot of patience, a lot of looking. Then you've got to hope that it's going to be in the right place on whatever you're shooting. I don't like to move things personally. Some people will just maybe try and move things onto a different leaf or a stick or something. I try not to do that. It's just a personal thing. So then it's hoping that whatever you're looking at is going to put itself somewhere you're actually going to be able to get the camera into, and then it's going to sit still. And then with spiders, they're going to turn around and look at you because those eyes make the shot, really. So a lot of patience.
So a lot of crawling around, basically.
A lot of crawling around, a lot of sitting on the floor, sitting in leaf litter, sitting on the sand, getting bitten by things. I'm not selling this, but getting bitten by things.
So let's talk. I want to get into this a little bit more. I want to talk settings here. So is this autofocus that we're looking at here?
This one could be. I think it was. Okay. I do a lot of mine on autofocus.
Yep.
But then I have a lot of custom settings on my camera now. I have a button to turn on focus peaking very easily. I have a button to turn on focus bracketing, focus stacking, magnification, and things like that. So I've got a few different buttons. I will try and autofocus. There's some macro photographers that will only shoot in manual. I find I get on, better with autofocus to a point. And then if the autofocus just isn't working, what I will tend to do is if you just press a button with my thumb, that turns on my focus peaking. And then I will just move myself very gently in and out with my thumb on my finger on my focus peaking button, and use that to tell me when the eyes are sharp. And then that's when I take my shot.
Okay, so you're literally lining up the shot, you're focusing, but then you are physically moving the camera backwards and forward.
Ever so slightly, just moving yourself just to...
Are we talking like millimeters here, like really small, very... And this is, I'm assuming, because these lenses have such a shallow depth of field, thanks not only to the fact that they are f2.8, but they're also 60 mil. So they're and on an Olympus setup, for those of you keeping up at home, that's actually 120 mil. So, which also gives you lens compression. Yes. So that means that incredibly shallow focal plane where you are trying to get. Can you tell me how big this insect is? Like, was it a centimeter?
No, she's about
Sorry, this
5
spider. That's not
millimeters.
an insect. It's a spider, Brendan. Come on.
No, she's about 5 millimeters.
Wow. So, yeah, you're working in really confined areas for one,
Yeah.
but tiny subjects for another. So those little incremental movements must be really important.
Yes, yeah, they are. And with the again, for those that don't know, with the 60mm macro, there's a little dial on the side of the lens, and you can flick that to a 1-to-1 position. But it's actually really hard to autofocus at 1-to-1 because even your breathing moves you, sort of thing. So to line that up is really difficult. So again, just that focus peaking and just moving yourself very gently. That's how I find it most useful.
Yeah, that's absolutely phenomenal. So, excuse me. There's a lot of technique. It's not to me.
Yeah.
Macro photography is more about human technique rather than gear. I mean, yes, obviously the gear is important, but that actual ability to be able to physically move yourself, sometimes probably quite quickly, because bugs and insects don't stay still very long, right? Yeah. So do you find that incredibly frustrating, I'm assuming?
Yes, yeah. It's one of the challenges of macro photography. You just prepare to be frustrated because your whatever you're trying to photograph is going to move, or it's going to turn away from you, or it's not going to be sat anywhere you can get the camera into, or they make life difficult.
I'm sure they do. So with that in mind, so how far afield do you need to go from where you live to be able to take photos like that? I mean, are you lucky enough to have places nearby, and do you have a go-to?
Yeah, so I think that's the beauty of macro photography is you can do it in your garden. So there's one of the photographs that we might see later that's taken in mum and dad's garden. So you can do it in your garden. I have a sports complex at the side of the estate here that would take me 5 minutes to walk to. I go there quite often because there's a lot of native planting there. But then I'm about 20 minutes away from where I took that spider. So that's easy. And then close by, within 10-15 minutes, there's a few reserves that we go to regularly, which have all been awesome. And the photo, quite a few of the rest of the photos were all taken. So there's a couple from Queensland, but the rest are really within sort of 15-20 minutes from home. So yeah, I'm lucky in that sense. We've got a few reserves, just small places, but they're full of,
Now, I'm pretty observant, and I noticed that you might have a couple of cameras set up on that shelf behind you there.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned before a diffuser. Now, I'm going on a limb here. Other than the lens, I'm going to say the diffuser and the flash and the diffuser are the next most important part of macro photography. Are you able to grab one of those from behind you there?
Yes. Give me a second.
Let's get a look at that. So see, what that does is that saves me Googling it and trying to bring it up on the screen. And right, look at that weapon.
It certainly is. Excuse the elastic band. This should be a nice black band that comes with it, but I actually broke it. So
I love jerry rigged equipment. All of my gear has got rubber bands and string and tape and crap holding it together. Now, the diffusers that you use, I know they are a particular brand. Are you happy to plug the brand on this show?
Yes, I am. So the diffusers are Cygnus Tech diffusers.
I will link them below as well.
Oh, lovely. So that's a young gentleman called Brendan as well. And he's based just outside of Cairns. So he spent a lot of time developing this, and he has got a small business producing these.
I'm going to get you to hold it up again because I want our people to see this and have a good look at it. So you can see there, it's a thumping great big piece of equipment. It dominates your camera, doesn't it?
It does. It probably looks bigger. I don't know on the screen. Let me pull it back a bit. The 90 is bigger. So what Brendan does is he makes, and you tell him what your camera, flash, and lens combo is, and then he provides the right, because you need the right size here and the right size here. So he produces depending on your needs, really.
So when you turn that front onto us, you can see the lens there. So that's the lens poking out the bottom of the diffuser. So the diffuser is literally that, is something that diffuses the light, and that gives you a much more even light. And it looks like to me that envelops your subject. Is that the idea behind the diffuser?
Yes. So this diffuser is sort of pushing your light towards your subject, but then yes, it's softening it and spreading it. So the material that it's made out of will help soften it and also spread it. So yeah.
So, question without notice, if I'm getting into my macro photography, do I have to buy one of those?
No.
Right.
So you said earlier, sometimes it's the person and not the equipment. And I know you know, that's something that you and Cam talk about quite often is do you need the latest and the greatest? No, you don't. Yeah. These are awesome. Yeah. There are other brands or other, you know, sort of options out there on eBay and things like that. They tend to, you know, the quality is obvious, if that makes sense. Yeah. But to start out with, and the other thing that you can do is actually make your own. So we have a guy that comes out quite often. We photograph quite a lot at night, and so we'll tend to get a group together and go out. And a gentleman called Ryan comes with us. He literally has one made out of cardboard. And fantastic. It's phenomenal. Yeah, it's brilliant. And you can find various tutorials on YouTube how to make your own from a Pringles packet, you know, the Pringles tube or just cardboard. And he gets beautiful shots. Yeah. So you can literally make your own. And that first shot was done with a mag mod. So excuse me a moment, I've got it in here somewhere. I'll just disappear off screen while I... No, I love it. That's fine. So just the mag mod diffuser. Yep. So that was what the first one was. So if you've got one of those, that sort of thing knocking about, any kind of diffuser is better than nothing. So even sometimes with the Olympus, you get the little tiny flashes. Yep. So even if that's the only flash that people have got, you can even just put around some tissue or baking paper or something like that, which again will just soften that light. It won't spread it, but it'll soften the light. So yeah, it's so good that you can. It sounds like pretty much anyone with a camera can get into macro photography. One thing I have noticed for those of you who might want to dabble in it as well, dare I say it, but the latest phones have got quite good macro features in them. If you just want to have a bit of a play and not necessarily get to the level that Cheryl's at, or, but it'll certainly whet your appetite. You don't necessarily have to rush out and buy all the gear. You can start with what you've got, with the camera that you've got. And I dare say if you had a quick look on eBay, Facebook Marketplace, you're going to find a macro lens. And again, it doesn't even have to be, a Nikon, Canon, Olympus lens. You can get very, very cheap aftermarket lenses as well to dip your toe in the water. And there are whole Facebook groups dedicated to iPhone macro photography as well. But you can also get now, I think it's Nisi do a macro filter, a close-up filter that goes on the front. So you can even just invest a lot cheaper than actually getting the whole lens. And I believe they're very good. I've not used one, but I believe they're good. So again, you can use that on a lens you already have to give you a bit more of an option. And then, I guess invest down and track it, something like.
Sorry, did you say that was the Nisi brand?
Nisi, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I happen to know a guy that might be stocking Nisi stuff pretty soon.
Oh, right. Well, you'll have one to play with then.
No, that wasn't prompted at all. So, Cheryl, do you sell your photos?
No.
You don't? It's just your own personal. Can I buy the spider? No, I'm joking. Yeah.
I've always thought, a few people have said maybe that I should, but I've always thought, who wants a picture of a giant spider on the wall? Except my friend Tom, who has a giant, he has left us now, but he had a giant tapestry of a spider on the wall. It was huge. It was fantastic. But, I think, I'm not sure that there's much market for big prints of people wanting to put things on the wall like that. I have sort of thinking about some other things for smaller things, smaller gifts and things that people might like for the nature lover in the family that they don't know what to get for Christmas. But so just looking at that. the moment, but no, I'm not sorry.
I don't want to tell you this, but I think you're wrong. I think there is actually a market for this, but it's not obviously for what we've seen so far. We're going to see some more in a minute, so we'll get to that, folks. But I mean, there would be people that, for example, a redback spider. I mean,
yes.
the quintessential Australian spiders, redback, funnel web, that sort of stuff. That would be pretty sensational. Have you shot a redback yet?
I've photographed a juvenile, but which juveniles are really pretty. They're really lovely colours. But it wasn't in a great location, so I didn't make the best photo. I would photograph one happily if I came across one in a good position. I probably should go looking for them. I've got some photographs of a mouse spider as well. Their venom is of a similar profile to the funnel webs, and they're amazing looking little things. So I have got, but they're less known than the funnel web. So I've never seen a funnel web.
Okay.
Maybe,
I've only ever seen one, and it scared the shit out of me, to be honest, and I did sort of jump back from it. But that would be pretty sensational to get shots like that. So, I mean, I think we're quite lucky in Australia. We've got a lot of creepy crawlies for you. So,
yes, definitely. I've photographed a lot of huntsmen, a lot of wolf spiders. I love wolf spiders, and some trapdoor spiders, wishbone spiders, and they pretty gnarly looking things. But I'd say I didn't include those here because not everybody likes spiders, and I didn't want.
Well, without any further ado, let's jump into a few more photos. So let's have a look at what we've got here.
Okay, so this is a little leaf hopper nymph, and this was one. So that first photograph of the spider was the thing that got me hooked, and this one really sealed the deal because this was just a couple of months after that spider photo, and my friend Annette and I were out. We'd been looking for another tiny jumping spider, and we had found it. Had got some shots, and then it had disappeared, and then there was nothing around. So sort of remember, they say sometimes you just got to sit still and let the wildlife come to you. So I sat myself down by some leaf litter and waited, and nearly had a heart attack because I realized my hand was sat next to what I thought was a huntsman at the time. And it would have been the first huntsman I'd actually ever seen. So it turned out it's actually the exoskeleton of the huntsman that it had molted. So it was fine. But as I'm sat there, there's a tiny little green thing. It just looked like a nib of vegetation, just like the bottom of a flower or something, nothing. And but it moved, or I thought it moved. And I thought, oh, that's weird. And I looked, and it definitely moved again. But I couldn't see what it was, so I had to take a photograph. And I looked in the viewfinder, and the first thing I thought was, there is an alien in my viewfinder, because I'd never seen anything that looked like that before. So I think here I have actually, this is the little twig, tiny twig that it was actually on, so I haven't put it on there. But I think I had picked it up a little bit to get a better angle on it. And it was bobbing, so as it moved, it was sort of bobbing along the stick, and I got this shot. And I think this sealed the deal because I had no idea these sorts of things existed, and I was just fascinated. And to have that lens, that camera that could, I guess, allow me to see these things and allow me to see that detail totally hooked me. And the yellow things on its head, they're actually parasites as well, which I just couldn't see any of that with the naked eye. I could just see this tiny blob of green moving. So it sealed the deal. I was sort of like, okay, well, if that's out there, then there's other things that I need to go and look for. So yeah.
So this subject here, we're looking at something, I'm going to assume 3 or 4 millimeters across.
Yes.
Very, very small. And that's the other advantage of shooting with macro setups is the bokeh, the fall away that you get in the background that gives you that stunning separation. And there's a few more as we go through. Let's have a look at another. So we'll go to this one here.
Yeah, this one, I would like it to be ever so slightly sharper, but it was another lesson, a bit like the last one, in just that our world is full of things we have no idea exist.
This is the cartoon character, right? That's not real.
It looks like it's made from all bits of other insects that have been left over and put together. And
it does.
So this one was taken in Queensland on our macro workshop that we've just done, and I was stood waiting for some guests to take some photos, and I just looked down, and there was a little tiny fly. This is probably about 3 millimeters. That's all in, and I could just see what almost looked like. So I'm looking down on it, and almost looked like a perfect little triangle with the wing shaped. And I thought, oh, that's cute. While I'm waiting, I'll just grab a shot. But the leaf was moving slightly, so I thought I've got to hold the leaf. So I knelt down and held the leaf, but now I'm on a level with it, and I'm like, I can't tell what's going on, but it's a funny shape. So again, I had to take the photograph to see it, and I looked in the viewfinder, and I'm like, I've never seen anything like that. So it only allowed me 3 shots before it shot off. So like I say, I would like it to be a little bit sharper, but I was just blown away by it. It's a tiny parasitic wasp.
Yep.
They lay their eggs near, so it parasitizes ants. It lays its eggs near where ants are sort of like ant highway. When they hatch, the larvae attach themselves to the ants and get carried back into the nest. Wow. And then when they're in the nest, they detach themselves from the ants. They find the larvae and they feed on the larvae, basically. So, just fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is where the macro world, fascinates me as well. You've said so far a couple of times that you had to check your viewfinder to see what it was, and then you get this amazing surprise. Now, when you shoot landscape, what you see is what you get. That's what you're shooting. When you shoot macro, things change, and it's like opening a present every time you push the button.
It is. It really is. And sometimes as well, you see your subject and you're focused on that. Then when you review it, you realize it's actually a second. I've done that before. I was photographing a beetle, beautiful beetle. It wasn't until I got home that I realized there was actually a moth in there as well, tiny, tiny moth. But they're back to back, so they look like they're not talking to each other. So sometimes it really is. I think that's one of the things I love about macro. It's a treasure hunt. To what you can find, and then sometimes you find things you're really not expecting at all.
So a shot like this one, so there's a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to hazard a guess here and say that this one may have been a little easier to shoot because is this taken top down?
Yes. So, and it's also, these grow up to about 10 centimeters long. So,
right. So this is just a walk in the park, this one, compared to what we looked at so far.
It's laying itself flat against the leaf, trying to pretend it's not there. This was daytime. These guys, they were out and about, but they tend to be out more during the night. This is a peppermint stick insect, and it's another one taken up Cape Tribulation. These are really weird. They don't look real. When you see them in the flesh, they look like a plastic toy from Kmart that somebody's plonked on a leaf. They're a funny colour. They just look awkward. They're really weird, but also, again, fascinating to see. But these are called peppermint stick insects because if they're threatened, they can shoot out a substance to put off their predators, and it smells like peppermint, apparently. So
that's brilliant.
And they're only found really up in Cape Tribulation, a couple of other places, I think in Queensland, and I think in Indonesia as well. So
okay. So to me, just to dissect this photo a little bit, I think this is a really good example of that diffuser at work because it really does, because you've got a fairly glossy textured surface there with lots of areas of light being reflected at a lot of different angles. And the diffuser literally softens all of that. It doesn't give you a bounce of direct flash straight back into the lens, does it? It literally sends the light off in all the other directions so that you can actually see the texture.
That's right. It really softens. I think, like you're right, that's what helps bring out that detail. And that's why we use the flash and the diffuser. It's partly to help freeze your subject if it's moving, but it really helps bring out that detail as well.
So I'm going to jump to another one here. I mean, come on. That's amazing. What a stunning photograph.
Thank you. This is one of a few that I managed to get over the course of a couple of nights. So going back to Paul, who I mentioned earlier, one of the big tips he gave right at that beginning when we were just starting out, and one that I always tell everybody, he always says, if something looks out of place, if something doesn't look quite right, go and look at it, because quite often it's going to be a something. So, you know, if there's a smudge of colour, a little bump, a little thing that doesn't look like it should be there, go and look at it. And that's what happened here. So I've totally got him to thank for this. So Annette and I were out doing a night stalk in a local park. And over the night stalk, you've got a head torch on, and your vision is very much limited to where your head torch is going, which can really help with finding things, because you've not got that sort of all that peripheral stuff going on as well. You're very, focused and limited to where your torchlight is. But as I'm sort of just looking around, my torchlight just caught this lump. So it's a very fine sort of dried grass, and there's a lump on it that looked bigger than it should be. And so I didn't think it was a thing, but I wanted to check. Paul's words ringing in my ear. So I went to check, and it was, these are, I can never say these, Lipotrichus bees or Lipotrichus bees. These are the males, and they're roosting. So there was a clump of probably 50, which I've got photographs of. There was this little group. I got photographs of just individuals on little seed heads nearby, and one of two little bees sat either side as well. So that really was the biggest tip is, if something doesn't look quite right, go and check it out. And because that got me that photo.
So am I looking at one exposure here?
You are, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So and this was the technique. So you're working in the dark here. So
yes.
This is your head torch lighting it up first, and you're using that head torch then as a modeling lamp for your focusing.
No.
Is that right?
No.
Okay.
So
educate me, Cheryl.
Right. So with the bigger 90mm and the flash for the 90mm, that flash, I use the Godox flashes, so that's an 860 version 3. That comes with an inbuilt modeling light.
Ah, very good.
The flash that I use with the smaller system is a Godox V350. It doesn't have a modeling light, and I should have put it in. But what I do underneath where this band is in here, I put in a tiny torch.
Yep. Okay.
So a tiny torch. It either sits you can either have one sitting at the top, or attach a little one with a band around here, and that's
you're just you're basically adding a modeling light to that flash.
Yeah, so just adding a modeling light. So the head torches can be useful, but it can also get in the way because they can be a bit too strong a light, particularly if you have got something quite shiny. So sometimes you just need to move the torch out of the way, or I've got one that swivels, so I can swivel it completely out of the way, and then all I'm using is my modeling light to get the shot, because sometimes, particularly with shiny things, your head torch is too.
And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, a modeling light is literally just a light to light up your subject, so you've got something to focus on. Otherwise, if your camera can't detect any contrast, it'll just hunt, and particularly if you're auto focusing, so you need something for your camera to see. So, as Cheryl just said there, a lamp, a smaller torch attached to your flash. That's so cool because it's jerry rigged, and I love stuff that's jerry rigged. That's great.
Yeah. With the Cygnus Tech diffusers, Brendan actually supplies a little torch and a little holder that will go on.
Awesome.
But you can also use any tiny little torch that you can rig up there is fine.
Yeah, I love it. Let's have a look at another one. So, this is, what a burst of color you've got going on there.
So this one actually taught me a couple of lessons as well. So what we've got here is a field digger wasp, and it's caught a green bottle, and basically it's going to fly this back to its nest, and it stuffs its nest full of flies and things for its larvae to feed on. This is in my mum and dad's garden in the UK. The neighbours had to come out and see what was happening because they were a bit concerned about what was going on. There was all these flashing things going on. But the two things this taught me is sometimes even in the most, I guess, sort of boring looking plants, you can find amazing things. So Dad's got a wildlife friendly garden. It's full of flowers and shrubs and all sorts that attract wildlife. This bush, he can't even remember what it is. It just sits there in his front garden because it's been there forever. It does nothing. It's just green. It does nothing. Mm-hmm. So I've been focusing on everything else, and just happened to notice there was something bigger flying around this bush, and then took more notice. And it was absolutely full of ladybirds, ladybird larvae, spiders, all sorts of flies. And then this wasp, and well, several of these wasps were moving all the way through it looking for their prey. And it drove me mad because I could not get a shot of it. But the other lesson it sort of taught me was to just wait and watch and learn the behavior. And what I realized, I think it took me 2 days to realize it, but what I realized is that when they got some prey, they would come up and they would pause for a few seconds while they just righted that prey, ready for flying away with it. So once I realized that, then I could be ready, watch something till it came up, and then just be ready. So definitely don't ignore plants and shrubs that just look boring and don't look like they're going to have anything in them, because this one certainly did. And also it is about watching behavior and learning behavior. And there's quite a few insects have repetitive behaviors. So dragonflies and things like that, for instance, they'll often fly and then they'll often come back to the same stick or the same perch. So just understanding and learning and just taking a few minutes to watch can certainly help.
Well, what I'm starting to pick up here is that, I mean, if anyone's got a garden, they're going to get insects of some kind to be able to photograph, because they have their own ecosystem. Every plant has its own ecosystem, and I would have thought that most plants have a symbiotic relationship with insects that they need to survive, to spread their pollen and all that sort of stuff as well. Yeah, it's amazing how much. To me, it sounds like you've learnt an incredible amount just by doing macro photography.
Yeah, yes, because I think that it's one of the frustrations of macro photography, but also, again, one of the attractions is it's not enough to get the photograph. Then you want to know what it is that you photographed and a little bit more about it. And I think
which leads to having the knowledge to shoot more photographs. So it's great. It's just a cyclical thing that works really well.
Yeah. I think as humans, we like to name things. We like to know what we're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are we looking at here?
It's funny you should talking about symbiotic relationships. So this is a kind of symbiotic relationship called mutualism. So it looks on first glance like this ant is attacking this tree hopper, but it's actually protecting it. So again, this is another lesson in understanding behavior. It's a mutual relationship where the ants protect the hoppers from predators, parasites, and things like that. And the tree hopper pays the ant for that protection. It's a bit like a protection racket in a way, but the hoppers, the hoppers. So you've got quite a few different species of hoppers, and different species of ants have got different relationships with different hoppers. And not all hoppers have relationships with ants, but quite a few do. And so the hoppers are sap suckers, basically. So they've got mouth parts that can penetrate and suck the sap out of the twig, the branch, whatever. But they almost take in too much, and they end up having to excrete honeydew, excess honeydew, which the ants want. So the ants protect the tree hoppers in, and then they get the honeydew for doing that. They farm them in a sense. We'll call it farming, but it's not really, in that they'll move them as well. So if they've been feeding in an area for quite a while, they will actually move them onto a fresh area so that they keep that honeydew supply fresh, but they're also making sure that they're getting enough food for themselves as well. So it's a relationship that works really well. It does benefit the photographer as well, because you can, so most bushes and shrubs, trees, you'll find ants running around. But if you find quite a few ants and they all seem to be heading in similar directions, take a closer look again, look where they're going, because quite often they'll lead you to the hoppers or to the hopper nymphs. So that's another thing learned. It's now, I don't really look for the hoppers, I look for the ants first, and then I'll find the hoppers. So
that is cool. I'm going to come back to the next one. I want to just jump. The reason I want to put this one up is this is, to me, this is your classic macro. I mean, you've got you almost look like you asked this grasshopper to smile.
Yeah.
And smile for the camera sort of thing.
Yeah.
So with a shot like this, I want to talk a little bit more about settings if we can.
Mm-hmm.
So now this is where I'm completely off the rails when it comes to flash photography. I have no idea about, and I've mentioned this on the show before, it's an area of photography I have no idea about. What mode is your camera in when you're taking this shot? We talking aperture, shutter priority, manual? What are we shooting in here? Right.
Yeah,
so you're a manual shooter pretty much all the time?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. So both flash and camera in manual.
Yep.
So, and for the majority of what I'm doing, I just have one set of settings. So I set my aperture, my shutter speed, my ISO, and they don't change for the majority. There are some occasions where they will, but they don't change. They stay the same. And then the flash is in manual as well. And I'm just controlling the flash output.
Yep. So how much power, literally how much light is being thrown on your subject?
Yeah, literally just that. So settings stay the same. It keeps it super simple. And then you're just dialing your flash slightly up, slightly down, depending on your subject. So that could be as well your distance from your subject, but it can also be how shiny your subject is and things like that, that you might just dial up or dial down slightly.
So in terms of a shutter speed here, do you know what we're working with in an image like this?
That would be either 1/250th or 1/160th of a second. I used to shoot everything at 1/250th of a second, so I suspect that's what I've just dropped it slightly to 1/160th just because it helps.
So effectively, what we talk about there is the flash, so the pulse of light that lights up your subject. For all intent and purposes, that's more your shutter speed, because it's how long that pulse of light stays on your subject. And basically your shutter stays open either side of that. Is that right? Is that a rudimentary sort of explanation of it?
Yeah, rudimentary. And then that's lighting up your subject, and it can have then has an effect on your background as well. So this one was shot at night, but the tiny little weird fly, the little parasitic wasp, was shot in the daytime, but they've both got black backgrounds. And that's because flash only covers a certain distance, so then it falls away, so flash fall off. Because there's nothing close behind either subject, the flash has lit them up, and then it's just fallen off and given a perfect black background. So but you can play with that if you don't want that. So it's more difficult at night, obviously, but during the day you can play with that flash output a little bit and your shutter speed on your camera, so that it lights up your subject. So it's almost like a fill-in light, and your background's still softened, but your background needs to be quite bright to start with, sort of thing. So there's a few different things you can do with your flash to get different effects.
Yeah, I love it. And now, last but not least.
So I put the last one in just because that was a Queensland shot, and that was a katydid. It was just coming up across a leaf, and I got a couple of shots head on, and then it looks like you've asked it to stop and smile, or it looks pretty officious to me as well. So it just made me smile. This one made me smile. I do like to photograph frogs and lizards and things as well. It's probably not my best shot of a frog in some ways, but it just makes me smile because it just, like teenage Ninja Turtles used to come up out of the this one was coming up out of a little drain. I'd seen it. We've got a local pond about 10 minutes away, and was walking the dog after dark in the middle of summer, when it's too hot, so you take the dog for a walk after dark, take the camera, and it was sat on the grass, so I was trying to carefully approach, but it didn't like that, so it dived down here, and I nearly just walked away, but I thought I'll just have a look where it went, and it was looking up at me, and it just makes me smile. I just like the photo.
So a shot like that, I mean, when you pointed your camera down that hole towards that toad, frog, whatever it is, frog.
It's a motorbike frog. They sound like a motorbike when they're calling.
Right.
Yeah.
Your
They
goal,
like revving in the distance. They're awesome.
your goal in a shot like that, my assumption would be that you want the eyes sharp. Yeah, it's with most wildlife photography across the entire board. It's the eyes, because that's, as humans, that's how we communicate. That's how we connect with an animal, is by looking into its eyes.
Yeah.
So that's always your goal in every time.
Almost every time. So I've got a couple of photographs. I've got a photograph of the male of the Murata speciosus, the coastal peacock spider, and he's about to jump. So he's got his back turned to me, and but I still love that shot because they've got eyes in different places. Spiders as well. The two on the top are sharpest, but because it's just showing the color on his abdomen and that he looks like he's about to jump. So it's a bit of an action shot. So I don't mind so much for that, but for most things, I'm trying to get the eye sharp. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. That was brilliant. That is the tip of the iceberg. So if you want to see more of Cheryl's stuff, you can go over to her website, which I'm going to put, hang on. It's not let it see. We're going to have a technical drama here now.
Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah, but we'll get there. Just give me, just going to get rid of, no, it's not going to let me put your website up. Sorry, it's not going to let me put Cheryl's website up. But anyway, we won't. It's the CherylDavisPhoto.au if you want to get in touch with Cheryl. Now, Cheryl, fantastic. Thank you for all that information. But you are involved now with running a few macro photography workshops around the place. Am I right?
Yes, I am. Yes.
So if people jump on your website.
Yes. If they jump on my website, there is a little bit on there about workshops. So I'm co-hosting the macro workshops with Cam. So he very kindly asked me to get involved. So there's a page on there which links them back to Cam's website for the full details and bookings and things. So we've just done one to the Daintree and also one up at Cradle Mountain, which was more focused sort of around fungi and fungus and mosses and things like that. Yeah. And we've got a couple next year running as well. So they've been great fun. They were awesome. Really enjoyed it.
Well, I have been lucky enough to talk to some people that have been on a couple of the workshops with you, and the feedback has been tremendous. You're very natural. You've got a natural teaching style about you. And your workshops that you run with Cam, are they open to any kind of system? Like, you don't have to have any particular kind of system, do you?
Yeah, any kind of system at all. We've had people with with Nikon and Canon and Olympus and Sony all on there, and that's been fine. And also we have a little bit of a kit as well. So I've got spare flashes and diffusers, and Cam's got a few spare bits and bobs. So we can help if people haven't got the full kit as well. We've got some extras that we can loan. Because sometimes, you do need to come out and try it before you invest, for sure. So.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as I say, that is the website right there if you want to jump on and have a look. Cheryl, thank you so much. I mean, we've gone well and truly over the hour that I try and allocate for these, but why wouldn't you? When you've got such amazing story to tell and also some brilliant photos. What do you see the future for yourself, Cheryl? I mean, you've obviously sort of you say macro since really 2021, which is only 4 years ago, and you're already now at a level where you're teaching other people in the workshops and things. Where do you see this taking you, Cheryl?
That's a good question, because I didn't think it would take me here. It was always a hobby, and I think it's only got me here because Cam was keen. He'd been asked about macro, and as I say, very kindly asked me to get involved. So and I'm now helping him on a few of his others as well while Dan's taking a break. So it's very early. I'm still trying to get my head around that. Really, it's almost a dream come true, because how many of us get to do something that we enjoy so much. So I think I want to continue improving. I know. Some of the other macro photographers, I know you shouldn't judge yourself against other people all the time, but I've seen some work by other people, and I'm like, what, I think I can improve in this or that. So there's a lot of things that I I'd like to practice myself, improve myself. I do a bit of focus stacking, but I would like to learn that a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, that's where, because the depth of field is so shallow with macro, that's where we take lots and lots of photos at different points, and then we join them all together post-processing to give us a bit more detail. So and then we'll take it from there. Like I say, I've been thinking about some little gifts and things that I might be able to produce, but it's early days. I'll give it more thought. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as I say, if anything, what we've seen tonight is anything to go by. There's certainly a future there for you. It's been an absolute joy, as I said. Thank you 1,000 times over for joining us. I hope you enjoy. You told me before that you were a little nervous coming on, but
Yes.
Cheryl, you're an absolute natural. So we really appreciate your time. And hey, hopefully we'll have you back on at some point.
And thank you for having me on as well. I really appreciate that as well. It's been good.
It's our absolute pleasure. So thanks again to Cheryl. This has been episode 163 of the Down South Photo, or 164, whatever it was. We will see you next. We'll see you next week for another episode. And we're not getting Cam back. We might get Cheryl back. What do you reckon?
I might get the sack as well.
Thanks again, Cheryl, and we'll see you next time on the Down South Photo Show. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.